When you can't be controlled, they try to confuse you. When you can't be confused, they try to discredit you. And when none of that works, they sit in silent fear, wondering how you became everything they pretended to be. My dear chosen ones, let's set the record straight right here, right now. Being watched is not always flattery, it's evidence. Evidence that your existence disrupts somebody's comfort zone. Evidence that your growth became the mirror they never asked for. Evidence that you rose without permission, support, applause, or a scripted blueprint. And it rattles them, because while they were trying to be seen, you were accidentally becoming unforgettable. So listen closely, chosen ones, because this intro isn't just a message, it's a wake-up call wrapped in fire. You were never meant to blend in with those who chase validation like hungry wolves looking for scraps. You were built to move differently, think differently, choose differently, and evolve differently. Your success, your evolution, and even your silence became psychological earthquakes to those who once underestimated you. You didn't grow loudly or theatrically, you transformed in private. And nothing terrifies a pretender more than someone who changes without needing a stage. They can't figure out your formula because there isn't one. You are the formula. You are the blueprint others try to photocopy while never realizing they're missing the ink. Authenticity. Now you might ask, why do they watch me? Why do they study me? Why do they act like I'm competition when I never entered their race? Because chosen ones, you are not participating in the same circus, yet your presence alone threatens the ringmaster. They don't just see your progress, they feel your aura. They don't simply notice your confidence, they sense your untouchable core. And no matter how much influence they hold, your energy is the one thing they cannot buy, mimic, manipulate, or decode. They are surrounded by applause, yet it's your silent power that keeps echoing in their mind long after the room clears. Some people watch out of curiosity, but others watch out of concern. Concern that you climbed without help, healed without witnesses, learned without mentors, and survived without clinging to anyone's approval. Concern that their influence was never enough to make you fold. Concern that the role they expected you to play didn't match the identity you were born with. You are not here auditioning, you are here arriving. And that terrifies those who depend on image, strategy, social scaffolding, and public choreography. Chosen ones, you are a paradox with legs, the kind of person who makes the confident second-guess themselves and the powerful rethink their definition of power. You confuse them, not because you try, but because you exist outside their emotional algorithm. It's not that you don't play the game, it's that you are the exception the game never accounted for. You are the chapter they skipped and now cannot understand the ending. You are the glitch they cannot patch, the mystery they cannot solve, and the storm they cannot forecast. They rewind conversations you forgot you even had. They screenshot posts you barely thought about. They hover, observe, analyze, and replay, like detectives trying to decode an encrypted language, your existence. And if they ever admitted how much time their mind visits you, they would choke on their own pride. They don't admire you publicly because admiration requires honesty, and honesty would reveal insecurity. So instead, they monitor from the shadows, hoping proximity will give them clarity. Dear chosen ones, never forget this universal truth. You are not magnetic because of luck. You are magnetic because of alignment. You did not rise because you fought harder. You rose because you refused to give up when no one was clapping, and that kind of elevation cannot be reverse engineered. Every scar became a certificate. Every setback became strategy. Every closed door became redirection. You didn't glow up. You grew powerful. There's a difference. So here we are, stepping into this next chapter with a new banner to carry, an idiomatic declaration. When the mask falls, real value speaks. This is where we begin, chosen ones. Not with timid introductions, not with whispered disclaimers, but with the unapologetic truth that some people don't fear losing control of you. They fear you discovering the depth of your own power. And now, let's go deeper. Before we move forward, chosen ones, if this message is speaking to the deepest part of you, the part that refuses to settle, shrink, or be silent, then support this mission by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your engagement isn't just a click, it's fuel that helps us continue creating empowering, transformational, and awakening content for people like you who are rising into their true identity. When you support, you're not just helping the channel, you're helping a movement built for the rare, the resilient, and the unstoppable. Stay connected, stay awakened, and let's grow louder together. Number 1. Guided by an unshakable inner GPS, no one can hack or rewrite. The unshakable inner GPS. They can't hack, buy, or reprogram. When they realized you couldn't be steered with rewards, redirected with pressure, or bought with glitter, that's when they understood your path isn't influenced, it's self-authorized. My dear chosen ones, this is where their curiosity turns into quiet obsession. The moment they realize your direction in life isn't controlled by trends, approval, or the seductive bait that keeps most people chasing illusions instead of purpose. While others drive their lives using external signals, social applause, or whatever looks shiny in the moment, you navigate through something far more advanced, a deeply aligned inner system that doesn't malfunction under pressure, doesn't need a crowd for confirmation, and doesn't take shortcuts simply because the world expects you to. And yes, chosen ones, this is exactly why certain people, especially the ones used to shaping identities around them, can't figure out how you remain so consistent, so authentic, and so unmoved, no matter who's watching or what's offered. You see, they're surrounded by people who behave like weather vanes, changing direction based on opinion, convenience, or advantage. They know what it looks like when someone switches their values to match a room, bends to please those in power, or compromises for proximity to popularity. It's the world they're used to, one where loyalty can be negotiated, values can be rented, and identity can be adjusted for opportunity. But then you walked in, chosen ones, someone who doesn't pivot for attention, doesn't audition for acceptance, and doesn't trade integrity for access. That alone is enough to leave them mentally rewinding conversations, replaying your reactions, and analyzing your choices like encrypted data. Some of you may quietly wonder, why do they care so much about my stability? Why does my consistency threaten or fascinate them? Because, chosen ones, when someone has built an empire of influence, the one thing they can't tolerate in others is immunity to persuasion. They count on emotional leverage, social pressure, and psychological influence to maintain control. And when they meet someone who doesn't respond to that system, it's not just unusual, it's destabilizing. To them, it's like watching a chess piece move without touching the board. Unpredictable, disruptive, and incomprehensible. Your inner compass wasn't built from applause, attention, or external validation. It was developed in the silent seasons where you were forced to find direction without reassurance, without confirmation, and without someone telling you what to believe. While they were busy constructing images, reputations, and public personas, you were building self-identity, clarity, and emotional intelligence. They built branding. You built being. And that difference is so rare that it becomes unforgettable. Chosen ones, understand this clearly. They are not obsessed because you refuse to change. They're obsessed because you don't need to. Your decisions don't come from desperation, fear of missing out, or the panic of wanting to belong. They come from alignment, inner clarity, and self-ownership. In a world where many people would trade morals for invitations or authenticity for attention, your refusal to shift without true purpose becomes a phenomenon they can't decode. What blows their mind the most is this: your compass remains accurate even when you are isolated. You don't lose direction in silence. You don't collapse when misunderstood. You don't ask for permission to stay true to yourself. You don't compromise even when nobody is watching. That's the kind of integrity that cannot be influenced, bribed, threatened, or redirected. That's the kind of authenticity that turns observers into analysts. They could offer you status, spotlight, or shortcuts, and you would still refuse if it doesn't align with who you are. They could try flattery, pressure, or promises, and you would still remain centered. And that, chosen ones, is what separates you from the crowd. Not rebellion, not arrogance, but self-certainty. Your compass isn't for sale, and it never will be. It is one of the rarest currencies in a performance-based world. Now listen, chosen ones. When someone cannot predict your direction, they cannot control your outcome. When they cannot control your outcome, they cannot calculate their influence over your journey. And when they cannot calculate influence, they are forced to observe instead of manipulate. You become a walking reminder that real power is internal, not granted. They aren't just watching you, they're studying the blueprint they never had the courage to build. And that, my chosen ones, is why your inner GPS isn't just a gift. It's your silent weapon, your unbreakable advantage, and the reason eyes stay locked on you longer than anyone dares to admit. Number 2, detecting hidden motives before anyone has time to mask them. The X-ray vision of intent they can't hide, mask, or repackage. A person who sees actions is common. A person who sees patterns is rare. But a person who sees motives before they appear is someone the world quietly fears. My dear chosen ones, if there is one ability that turns powerful individuals into silent observers around you, it is your uncanny ability to read intent faster than anyone can construct a narrative. While most people only catch the end result of someone's actions, you detect the origin. You don't just hear what's said, you feel what's meant. You don't simply observe behavior, you decode the blueprint behind it. And this, chosen ones, is not something you learned from a book, a mentor, or a motivational seminar. It is something refined through experience, observation, emotional intelligence, and a level of awareness that can't be taught, only earned. High-profile individuals move through life surrounded by actors, strategists, and emotional negotiators, people skilled at performing loyalty, selling carefully crafted personas, and hiding ambition behind polished smiles. They are used to masks so convincing that even trained experts struggle to tell sincerity from strategy. Yet when you step into the room, their usual advantage evaporates. You are not impressed by titles, credentials, charisma, or curated charm. You look past presentation and straight into intention, and no matter how well rehearsed someone is, they cannot hide what their energy has already confessed to you. Chosen ones, have you ever noticed how someone becomes uncomfortable when you simply look at them? Not aggressively, not suspiciously, just present, observant, and awake? It's because certain people can feel that you see more than what they are presenting. Your silence becomes a lie detector. Your presence becomes emotional truth serum. They sense that you are reading not only what they do, but why they do it. And the moment someone realizes they can't manipulate their image in front of you, they begin to adjust, not because you exposed them publicly, but because they felt exposed internally. Some of you might wonder, why do I notice things others don't? Why do motives reveal themselves to me before evidence appears? Why do I sense shifts, energy changes, and hidden agendas without needing proof? The answer is simple. You do not rely solely on logic or surface-level behavior. You read the emotional coding beneath experiences. You catch tone changes others ignore. You recognize hesitation patterns others dismiss. You hear meaning that hides behind silence. You identify contradictions that most people can't even articulate. Your instinct is not a guess, it's data perception. And here is the part that fascinates high-profile people the most. Your discernment is automatic, not forced. You don't sit analyzing like a detective. You simply exist with clarity where others need time, facts, evidence, or confirmation. You see the trajectory instantly. You know what someone intends before they reveal it. You know when trust is safe and when distance is required. You know when someone's presence is aligned or when it's opportunistic. And this level of perceptiveness places you outside the reach of manipulation, something extremely rare in a world built on influence and strategy. Chosen ones understand how powerful this makes you. They live in environments where intentions are rarely pure and honesty is selectively displayed. Their world functions on alliances, benefits, negotiations, optics, and leverage. In that kind of environment, emotional blindness is a liability, and emotional insight is a threat. You become the variable no one can predict, persuade, or disguise themselves around. While they try to read every room, they realize you read people, which is far more precise. You are not fascinated by image. You are interested in integrity. You are not impressed by confidence. You examine consistency. You are not moved by flattery. You measure alignment. That level of selective awareness makes you stand out like a laser beam in a fog-filled arena. Most people react based on emotions. You respond based on clarity, and clarity, chosen ones, is the highest form of intelligence in human interaction. When they try to charm, you measure motive. When they try to distract, you track patterns. When they try to persuade, you evaluate outcome. They realize suddenly that emotional performance won't work on you, not because you're hard-hearted, but because you're self-aware. And that self-awareness becomes something they can't help but study, respect, and fear. Remember this: you aren't dangerous because you speak. You're dangerous because you see. And when someone realizes that their intentions have nowhere to hide in your presence, they don't just become cautious, they become captivated. Number 3, a presence that silently reconstructs any room's power order. The silent earthquake that shifts every ladder they built. Some people shake the room by speaking. Chosen ones shake the room simply by existing. My dear chosen ones, this third truth is not just a trait, it is an atmospheric phenomenon. While most people climb hierarchies and chase status like oxygen, you walk into any space and unintentionally alter the chemistry of the room, not because you demand attention, not because you dominate conversations, not because you perform superiority, but because your presence alone disrupts a system built on performance, ego, and silent agreements. And when someone who operates from internal alignment walks into a world built on external ranking, the entire structure vibrates, even if nobody says a word. High-profile individuals live inside social pyramids that took them years to construct. Their position, reputation, connections, and identity are tied to where they stand on that invisible ladder. Every relationship has a role. Every interaction is calculated. Every alliance serves a purpose. They are accustomed to people reading the script, acknowledging hierarchy, and playing their designated character. But chosen ones, you are not built for scripts. You are built for reality. When you show up, you don't fall in line. You don't play a role. You don't bow, stretch, shrink, or adjust to fit their blueprint. And when someone enters their carefully architected world without conforming, it exposes something they never planned for. the illusion behind the hierarchy. You don't seek validation from ranks, titles, or popularity, and that alone dismantles their leverage. They can't intimidate you with influence, impress you with access, or lure you with privilege, because none of those things govern your identity. To them, that is unsettling, because hierarchy thrives only when people agree to believe in it. Chosen ones don't live by who's above and who's below. You live by energy, integrity, and alignment, concepts that can't be quantified or positioned. Some of you may wonder, why does my presence make people act differently? Why does energy shift when I enter a room? Why do even powerful people seem thrown off? It's because you are not playing their game, and there is nothing more threatening to a system than someone who doesn't participate, yet still influences the outcome. They can't compete with you because you aren't competing. They can't lead you because you don't need a leader. They can't outrank you because you aren't standing on the same measuring scale. They can't box you in because you don't recognize their walls. Chosen ones, understand this. Your influence is not loud, but it's undeniable. You don't force people to notice you, they just do. You don't demand respect. It forms around you naturally. You don't seek authority, yet you become a reference point. Power that is earned through authenticity will always overpower power built through performance. Like gravity, your presence doesn't announce itself. It simply pulls. When you walk into their environment, conversations subtly shift. People become more conscious of their words, priorities realign, unspoken motives simmer to the surface. Even laughter changes tone. No one can fully explain why, but everyone can feel it. And for someone who's used to orchestrating the emotional atmosphere, watching someone else naturally command it becomes addictive to observe and impossible to control. They start to analyze you. How are you influencing without effort? Why do people respond to you without instruction? Why does your silence say more than someone else's speech? They try to decode your power like a hidden algorithm. They have spent years learning persuasion, networking, branding, and public strategy, yet none of those tactics can replicate presence-based influence. They can control perception. You control energy. Chosen ones, this is why some people will be fascinated by you and others quietly intimidated. You reveal that real power isn't about standing on a ladder, it's about not needing the ladder at all. You show that hierarchy is only powerful when everyone participates. And when they meet you, someone who operates by internal alignment rather than external approval, they realize how fragile their system actually is. You are not a threat because you challenge, rebel, or overthrow. You are a threat because you don't need what they need to feel powerful. You are not fueled by attention, applause, or ranking. You are fueled by authenticity, clarity, and identity. They measured life vertically. You measure it internally. In a world full of people fighting for positions, titles, and thrones, you are the rare reminder that true authority is not claimed. It is recognized, and that chosen ones is why your presence doesn't fit into their hierarchy. It causes it to shake. Number 4. Depth-born wisdom that no title, degree, or mentor could manufacture. The kind of insight you can't Google, purchase, or get endorsed for. Some people memorize information to appear intelligent. Others survive realities that force them into wisdom, and that difference is what separates the unforgettable from the replaceable. My dear chosen ones, this is the point where fascination turns into a deeper, almost unnerving curiosity. Because while the high-profile ones polish their credentials, collect certificates, and flaunt who trained them, you walk into the room with a level of understanding that can't be traced, credited, or copied. They can list names, institutions, networks, and expensive environments that shaped their thinking, but when you open your mouth, chosen one, it becomes painfully clear that what you carry isn't learned, it's earned. It wasn't downloaded from textbooks, it was downloaded from life. See, high-profile people are used to identifying intelligence through labels, achievements, and affiliations. They believe knowledge comes from the right mentor, the right institution, the right table, the right room. But you were never shaped in those rooms. You were shaped in the unseen places, in the uncomfortable chapters, in the silent battles, in the forced growth no classroom could ever simulate. Your wisdom wasn't handed to you with applause. It was built through observation, introspection, instinct, and experience that left permanent cognitive upgrades. Chosen ones, this is why they study you so closely. Because your insight exposes the ceiling on their privileged education. They spent years perfecting the art of sounding knowledgeable. You spent years becoming someone who understands. They speak to impress. You speak to reveal. They recite concepts. You identify core truths. They analyze situations step by step. You see the entire map in one glance. They lean on systems. You lean on awareness. And that is something no degree, no mentor, no workshop, and no elite circle can manufacture. Your mind doesn't move linearly, it moves intuitively. You don't just gather facts, you interpret frequencies, intentions, patterns, and emotional code. Where others need evidence, reassurance, or validation, your clarity arrives uninvited and fully formed. And that, chosen ones, is what shakes the ground beneath those who spent fortunes trying to achieve what you naturally embody. They begin to ask themselves questions they never say out loud. How do you know so much without being taught? How do you see through things nobody else even notices? How do you interpret situations with such accuracy without previous experience? The answer is simple, but not comfortable for them. Your wisdom was developed in real life, not filtered life. You learned from observing human nature, not reading human theory. You developed awareness through surviving what others only discuss as case studies. You read energy, not just expressions. You decode intention, not just language. You sense what others are planning before they announce what they're doing. And that, chosen one, is not a skill. It's a rare evolutionary advantage. Your insight is not rehearsed, borrowed, or recycled. It doesn't echo someone else's thoughts. It has a tone, a depth, and a weight that people recognize instantly, even if they don't fully understand it. You don't speak like someone who studied something. You speak like someone who lived it. You don't impress people with information. You transform their perspective. Insight like yours doesn't sound loud, it sounds true. And truth doesn't need credentials, it only needs recognition. This is why high-profile individuals return to you, even if they pretend it's casual. They don't return for validation, applause, or emotional comfort. They return because something about your mind unlocks what they can't access alone. You don't explain things, you reveal them. And every time they converse with you, they don't leave entertained. They leave altered. In a world full of artificially inflated intelligence, public-approved brilliance, and socially validated expertise, you stand out because your wisdom wasn't purchased. It was paid for internally. You didn't chase impressive knowledge. Life forced you into inevitable wisdom. And that makes you not just insightful, but essential. So hear this clearly. Chosen one, your perspective is rare, your clarity is rare, your psychological depth is rare, and your ability to understand without being taught is nearly unheard of. They may have access, but you have awareness. They may have training, but you have truth. They may have credentials, but you have comprehension. And that, more than anything, is why they cannot stop watching you. You are not just informed, you are awakened. Number 5. A life where opportunities adjust, align, and arrive without chase. When you stop running, the world starts rearranging itself around you. They spent years sprinting toward doors while yours unlocked themselves, and that's when confusion turned into obsession. My dear chosen ones, this is the chapter where their curiosity becomes disbelief, where their understanding collapses, and where they finally realize that you were never competing for opportunities. Opportunities were competing for you. In a world programmed to worship hustle, chase culture, reputation politics, and aggressive networking, your effortless alignment is nothing short of a psychological paradox. While they practice strategy like a survival skill, you move with a quiet confidence that says, "What's meant for me will not pass me, and what passes me was never needed." And chosen ones, that level of self-assurance isn't common, it's legendary. High-profile individuals live in a system where opportunity is a sport, a battlefield, a chessboard full of calculated alliances and long-term plays. They study timing, master persuasion, manipulate impressions, and polish public image like armor. They spend years building networks, leveraging contacts, and positioning themselves like pieces in a global game of business and reputation. And then you enter the scene, someone who does not chase, compete, beg, perform, or bargain. Someone who isn't racing, isn't rushing, isn't desperate, and isn't compelled to prove worth through movement. That alone breaks every rule of the world they know. They hustle, you align. They chase, you attract. They persuade, you resonate. They manifest through force. You manifest through frequency. This difference is not only confusing to them, it is destabilizing. They don't understand how someone can live without constantly pushing for the next win, next opportunity, next milestone, next audience. They see you walking calmly while others run in circles, and that calmness becomes intimidating because it implies certainty they don't possess. Chosen ones, what you have isn't luck, it's alignment. You aren't waiting, you're vibrating, and those at the top know something rare when they see it. You may ask yourself, why do opportunities come to me when I'm not chasing them? Why do doors open after I stop knocking? Why do situations align when I stop stretching myself thin? Because chosen ones, you understand something most people never learn. The right path doesn't require self-abandonment. Where others exhaust themselves trying to fit into places that don't belong to them, you have mastered the art of being found where you are supposed to be. Opportunities do not gravitate toward noise, they gravitate toward clarity. And you, chosen ones, have clarity. When you walk into a space, you do so with identity, not desperation. People can sense that you do not need validation, partnership, or opportunity to feel complete. That makes you magnetic, not replaceable. You are not chasing a destination. You are the destination many are quietly trying to reach. And what fascinates high-profile individuals the most is that you are not passive. You are aligned. Alignment is not laziness. It is precision. It means you move when it matters, not when pressured. It means you choose timing, not urgency. It means you trust your rhythm, not the crowd's pace. They mistake stillness for inactivity, yet you know stillness is often the final step before elevation. Chosen ones, understand this. Noise brings attention, but alignment brings access. Those who chase believe success is outside of them. Those who attract have discovered it is already within. Your presence alone becomes a signal, not a broadcast, not an advertisement, not a campaign. You don't convince people you're valuable. People realize it on their own. You don't show why you deserve the opportunity. The opportunity recognizes its match. While many people overperform to be chosen, you simply exist and are selected naturally. This is the exact reason high-profile individuals become quietly obsessed. They succeeded through strategy, yet you succeed through authenticity. They fight for positions, yet positions unfold for you. They grind for visibility, yet visibility finds you without theatrical effort. To them, your reality feels like a cheat code, except it isn't. It's something more advanced, self-worth without negotiation. They watch you because they need to understand how someone can live without playing the game and still outperform players. They study you because no textbook, mentor, or mastermind can teach what you naturally embody. They replay your presence because they finally discovered something they can't replicate. Your energy is the door, not the knock. Remember, chosen ones, when you stop chasing, you stop losing, because what's aligned doesn't run away. When you stop begging, you start receiving, because what's meant arrives on its own timeline. When you stop forcing, you start flowing, because real opportunities require recognition, not pursuit. You are not following life. Life is following you. And that, chosen ones, is why eyes remain locked, minds remain puzzled, and doors keep opening without warning. You are not in the race, you are the finish line. Number 6. Influence that radiates without emotional bargaining or overworking. The power that speaks without performing, pleasing, or proving. My dear chosen ones, here's where they stop whispering, "Who are you?" and start quietly thinking, how do they do that? Because while most people drain themselves trying to be emotionally relevant, socially acceptable, or psychologically useful, you hold a kind of power that doesn't require performance, persuasion, or emotional acrobatics. You don't negotiate your peace to keep relationships functional. You don't sacrifice your inner clarity just to reassure someone who refuses to self-regulate. You don't reshape yourself to remain likable, approachable, or convenient. And that, chosen ones, is the exact point where fascination begins and intimidation follows. When you don't beg to be understood or demand to be valued, your silence becomes a language and your presence becomes a force. In the world they come from, especially those with influence, status, visibility, or power, emotional labor is not optional, it's part of their job description. They've built entire identities around managing perception, smoothing egos, and carefully calculating reactions so they never appear weak, unprepared, or unlikable. They are constantly monitoring expressions, tone, timing, and response, the same way a performer monitors spotlight placement. Even their laughter, pauses, and empathy become rehearsed choreography. That is how their world operates. Transactional connection, curated emotion, and hidden exhaustion disguised behind effortless charm. Then you enter, chosen one, not with armor, not with theatrics, not with rehearsed empathy, but with a natural emotional command that didn't require training. You don't manipulate the emotional atmosphere. You own it simply by existing. People feel you before they understand you because your emotional energy is grounded, self-contained, and never seeking approval. You don't have to work to be emotionally impactful. Your regulated presence is more powerful than their practiced performance. You may ask yourself, why does this matter to them? Why does this make them watch me? Why does something so natural to me seem so impossible for them? Because chosen ones, they have spent a lifetime learning how to manage emotions in order to maintain relevance, connection, and control. While you, without effort, maintain emotional sovereignty without losing peace, authenticity, or dignity. You didn't learn how to hold emotional power. You evolved into it. They witness how you can enter a room without speaking loudly, yet somehow the atmosphere softens, aligns, or recalibrates around you. You don't command attention, yet attention adjusts in your presence. You don't try to be relatable, yet people feel safe around you. You don't seek loyalty, yet loyalty forms without asking. That's the difference between earned resonance and manufactured connection, and they know exactly which one you possess. See, chosen ones, emotional labor is often the hidden currency of influence. People trade their sanity for relevance. They offer emotional service to gain emotional access. They soothe others to avoid conflict, pretend to agree to avoid abandonment, and perform empathy to remain welcomed. But your emotional stance is different. You choose when, where, and with whom you invest, because not everyone deserves access to your internal world. Your independence doesn't mean disconnection. It means discernment. And that, more than anything, is what unsettles and fascinates them. You are not cold, you are controlled. You are not distant, you are selective. You are not detached, you are balanced. They confuse emotional boundaries with emotional absence because they are used to people who give away emotional energy like free samples, hoping someone will find them valuable enough to keep. High-profile or high-status individuals are often trapped in emotional performance contracts they never signed with awareness. Their reputation depends on appearing compassionate, intelligent, composed, agreeable, inspiring, or strategically warm. Yours does not. Their emotional influence is expensive. Yours is effortless. Their emotional power comes with exhaustion. Yours comes with preservation. They hold influence because of their image. You hold influence because of your energy. You are the emotional black box no one can decode, the silent anchor no one can drag, and the grounded presence no one can unbalance. They can analyze your expressions, study your reactions, and monitor your responses, yet never quite predict your emotional movement because you are not controlled by external demand. You are governed by internal regulation. And so, chosen ones understand this truth. You are not admired merely for being strong. You are admired for holding strength without displaying fatigue. You are not respected because you refuse to bend. You are respected because you bend only by choice, never by pressure. You don't control emotions, you master yourself, and that mastery influences everything around you. They can mimic words, style, intelligence, and even appearance, but they cannot fabricate inner emotional sovereignty. They can act powerful, but they cannot feel powerful without external validation. And that is why they look at you not with superiority, but with a quiet, compelled, almost reluctant respect. In a world where emotional performance is survival, you are the rare one who leads without touching the stage. Number 7. Resilience that rebuilds stronger instead of breaking under pressure. The regenerating force they can't damage, drain, or deflate. Some break under pressure, some freeze under pressure, some pretend under pressure, but the chosen ones upgrade under pressure, and that's what terrifies them the most. My dear chosen ones, this is the moment where fascination turns into quiet disbelief, because no matter what you've been through, you refuse to stay broken. While others demonstrate strength only when conditions are comfortable, controlled, or supported by a network of resources, you stand out as the anomaly, the one who survives storms without shelter, darkness without guidance, and pressure without collapse. Your resilience does not come from being untouched. It comes from being unrepairable by others, yet fully rebuildable by yourself. And that kind of power cannot be imitated, copied, or purchased, no matter how high someone stands on the social ladder. The world knows how to admire strength that looks polished, strategic, and picture-ready. But you carry a different kind of strength, the kind that was forged in private battles, silent tears, invisible endurance, and uncelebrated victories. Others survive by handing their pain to someone else, but you learned how to digest it, extract the lesson, and return to life sharper than before. Chosen ones, this is why certain high-profile individuals watch you from a distance with a mixture of awe and confusion. They can't figure out how life hits you hard, and you still come back harder. Most people handle struggle with backup plans, emotional support systems, and guided recovery. They hire therapists, strategists, advisors or teams to stabilize their world when it starts shaking. But your resilience is not outsourced, crowdsourced, or sponsored. It is self-generated. You don't collapse under weight. You expand. You don't run from pressure. You reshape it. You don't wait for someone to save you. You become your own restart button. That kind of internal regeneration is not just rare. It's unsettling to those who have never learned how to breathe without assistance. Chosen ones, you may wonder, why do they study my resilience? Why does my inner strength bother them? Because they recognize that their power, although publicly admired, is conditional. It depends on resources, environment, reputation, access, and controlled surroundings. But your power originates from inner wiring, a place unreachable by external influence. They can remove comfort from others and watch them break. They can take away attention from others and watch them panic. But when pressure is applied to you, instead of crumbling, you evolve, and that is something they cannot decode. You mastered the art of transforming setbacks into strategy. Betrayal sharpened your awareness. Loss expanded your perspective. Silence strengthened your clarity. Isolation refined your mind. While many people fear pressure because it exposes their weakest points, you learned to use pressure as a sculpting tool, revealing your strongest form. They are mesmerized because every situation that should have ended you became the very reason you advanced. You didn't just survive, you upgraded. Chosen ones understand this. True resilience is not loud, glamorous, or dramatic. It is quiet, consistent, and unstoppable. You don't walk around announcing your battles or advertising your recovery. The world only sees that after every hit, every betrayal, every disappointment, every delay, and every heartbreak, you rise. Not bitter, but wiser. Not fragile, but focused. Not broken, but reconstructed with better material. That silent rebuilding is what captures the attention of those who assumed pain would dilute your potential. You carry a self-renewing spirit, a built-in recovery system that doesn't require applause to activate. You don't collapse when left alone, because solitude is where you recharge. You don't lose yourself in uncertainty, because purpose is your internal compass. You don't run from chaos, because you have learned how to stay centered even when the world shakes, and that, chosen ones, is what makes your presence unforgettable. High-profile individuals are accustomed to controlling outcomes through influence, resources, and structure. But when they witness someone whose power increases under pressure rather than decreases, they realize they are not observing ordinary strength. They are witnessing evolution in real time. You represent the rare truth. Pressure does not define you, it refines you. In a world where strength is often staged and resilience is often rehearsed, you are the living contradiction, the one who grows from what was meant to weaken you. They cannot copy that. They cannot teach that. They cannot purchase that. They cannot suppress that. And that, my chosen ones, is why they watch you not with casual interest, but with deep fascination. You are not just surviving life, you are mastering it through perpetual transformation. You don't return to who you were, you return as someone they never saw coming. And that, chosen ones, is the obsession. Number 8. Treating power like a responsibility, not an ornament for display. You treat power like a loaded tool, not a shimmery trophy they can show off. Anyone can pose with power, but only a rare few can carry it without dropping their integrity on the floor. My dear chosen ones, here's where the story gets even more uncomfortable for the ones watching you from behind silent screens and carefully curated lives. Most people, especially high-profile individuals, treat power like an accessory, something to wear, flaunt, and strategically showcase like a luxury watch designed to hypnotize the crowd. But you never saw power as a spotlight. You saw it as weight, a responsibility, a quiet assignment. And that difference alone is enough to make those who worship perception feel exposed, outdated, and unexpectedly small. They are surrounded by individuals who equate success with superiority, attention with value, and visibility with importance. In their world, power is currency, traded, advertised, and exaggerated. It becomes something to lean on, not something to protect. But chosen ones, when you step into the picture, the frequency shifts. The old script fails. Their definition of power suddenly looks theatrical, shallow, and insecure next to your silent mastery. You don't use power to intimidate, impress, or elevate yourself above others. You use it to create alignment, fairness, and clarity. While they polish power for social reflection, you sharpen it for purposeful execution. And you may ask, why does this trigger fascination, envy, or obsession? Why can't they simply ignore it and continue their show? Because deep down, they know power was never supposed to be a costume. It was meant to be carried with awareness, and watching someone like you handle something they glorify but barely understand becomes both inspiring and unsettling. It forces a sudden internal audit, one they never scheduled but cannot cancel. They notice how you think before you act, how you consider impact before reaction, how you protect others from harm even when no one is watching. They notice how your strength is calibrated, not impulsive, precise, not dramatic, intentional, not boastful. In a world where many are intoxicated with their own authority, your clarity becomes the rare antidote, steadying, balanced, and impossible to replicate. You don't chase leadership, chosen ones. Leadership emerges from how you exist. High-profile people are used to spectators, followers, admirers, and flatterers. They are accustomed to people who melt under influence or shape themselves to gain favor. Power to them is often a stage performance, an image maintenance routine, an ongoing applause-driven script. But when they observe you, someone who can hold power without needing to declare it, they begin to realize something. What they display, you naturally embody. What they inflate, you live. What they preach externally, you practice internally. You are not impressed by power because you understand how easily it can become corruption when held without self-awareness. You don't chase authority because authority naturally gravitates toward those who protect rather than perform. And that's why they find you simultaneously admirable and intimidating. You turn power into purpose, not decoration. While they rely on power to feel important, you rely on your values to remain grounded. Their influence is conditional. Yours is self-generated. Chosen ones, you possess something that can't be packaged. Depth, maturity, measured thinking. And that kind of depth forces anyone who watches you to confront their own motives. You unintentionally become a mirror, not showing their achievements, but their overlooked responsibilities. You remind them that power without intention is just noise, and authority without integrity is just performance art. They know they've used power to elevate their image, while you use it to elevate the standard. And that realization burns quietly but permanently. What shocks them most is that you don't brag about your character. You reveal it in choices. You don't give speeches, you give consistency. You don't seek admiration, you create stability. And in a world flooded with talkers, your ability to lead through silent integrity becomes unforgettable. Their fascination is not rooted in wanting to be like you. It's rooted in realizing they were supposed to become someone like you long ago. And once someone witnesses ethical strength, performative power becomes embarrassing. You make responsibility look natural while they struggle to make power look meaningful. This is why they keep watching. This is why they keep thinking. This is why they cannot look away. Because chosen ones, you are living proof that true power isn't seen, it is felt. Number 9. Immune to status-based influence because identity isn't for sale. The influence-proof identity they can't bend, buy, or break. When manipulation fails, they call you difficult. When pressure fails, they call you arrogant. When influence fails, they finally realize you were never theirs to shape. My dear chosen ones, this is where the game shifts, the masks crack, and the unspoken truth finally becomes visible to the ones who thought they understood human nature. Influence is the oldest form of psychological power. It existed long before titles, wealth, status, or social platforms. It is the currency high-profile individuals rely on, the silent language they speak fluently, and the invisible weapon they draw without ever lifting a finger. They know how to persuade without asking, how to guide without commanding, and how to manipulate without appearing involved. It is their world's highest skill until they meet you. Most people respond instantly to the shimmer of influence. They adjust their tone, soften their boundaries, modify their opinions, and bend their values the moment someone powerful enters the room. They become smaller, more careful, more agreeable, and more eager to be chosen than to choose. They engage in strategic admiration, disguised as respect, hoping proximity will become opportunity. But you, chosen one, you don't play that psychological hide-and-seek. Influence doesn't stick to you. It slides off like water on polished stone. Not because you're rebellious or uncooperative, but because you don't require external validation to feel secure in who you are. High-profile individuals are used to people being impressed before they even speak. They are accustomed to bodies leaning forward, tones becoming sweeter, and eyes widening with admiration. But when they stand before you, something unexpected happens. Nothing changes. You don't shrink. You don't perform. You don't suddenly try to become a more marketable version of yourself. You remain yourself with the same energy, posture, and clarity as if they were anyone else. And that, chosen ones, is not disrespect. It is internal authority. Your immunity isn't fueled by defiance, it's powered by self-sufficiency. You don't need status to feel relevant. You don't need approval to confirm your worth. You don't need association to authenticate your identity. You are already anchored, not in ego, but in clarity. They can offer access, invitations, opportunities, alliances, or visibility, and you will only consider it if it aligns, not if it impresses. People who cannot be impressed are not cold. They are simply not starving. When influence is ineffective, the influencer becomes unsettled. They begin analyzing not how to control you, but why they can't. To them, you become a psychological anomaly. Someone who is aware of power, yet unaffected by it. They replay interactions wondering how their most trusted weapon failed to land. They question themselves, not you. Did I say less? Did I say too much? Did they misunderstand me? Did they not recognize who I am? No. Chosen one, you recognized them perfectly. You simply didn't feel the need to surrender your identity in exchange for their validation. You are the rare presence that reminds them of a truth they avoid. Influence only works on those who believe they need something from the one who holds it, but you don't need anything to maintain your sense of value. Your worth is not a negotiation. Your direction is not open to suggestion. Your principles are not on sale. You stand where others kneel, not because you are superior, but because you are stable. When someone's inner world is intact, no external force can rearrange it. This is why their fascination deepens. You are the person they cannot lead, lure, intimidate, or recruit. You are not influenced by personas, titles, networks, or perceived importance. You don't measure value by popularity or relevance. You measure it by truth and alignment. and that is terrifying to anyone whose entire world operates on perception management. Chosen ones, listen here. Your immunity is not a wall, it is a filter. Nothing gets in unless it belongs. That kind of psychological independence is rare in a world where people constantly shapeshift to survive socially. You don't morph, you maintain. You don't impress, you express. You don't chase, you choose. High-profile individuals can handle competition, disagreement, or even confrontation, but they cannot handle someone who simply cannot be influenced. You become unforgettable, not because you resist, but because you remain unchanged. Now, chosen ones, prepare for what comes next, because this story is far from finished. Now, as we bring this chapter to a close, chosen ones, remember this. What sets you apart isn't noise, performance, or competition. It's the rare inner qualities that can neither be purchased nor duplicated. Your journey is not about proving anything to anyone, but about understanding the quiet power you carry. If this resonated with your inner truth, show that you walk this path with awareness. Like this video, subscribe for more powerful revelations, and drop 77 in the comments so I know you're part of the rare tribe. Share this with someone who needs to remember who they are becoming.